The View was forced to read a legal note. Almost comes across like a hostage video. Here is a before and after from their show on ABC. The clip comes from Colin Rugg. They do amazing work at Colin Rugg on his X account. And he explains that this was the before, what they were talking about, and Sunny getting very communicative in her description of Matt Gaetz and the Matt Gaetz allegations, and gets a little bit loose with her language. And then just a few minutes later, someone gives her the old tap on the shoulder, puts that up on the teleprompter screen and says, you're going to read this if it's good for you. So here's the before and after, courtesy of The View.
Someone with allegations of child trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old. My understanding further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
Even Whoopi is like getting her back. We'll be right back. Okay, like they both know it's like a joke. Like we have to read this. Otherwise, we're going to get sued into oblivion. And you can just see the pain on her face. I'll read this stupid statement at some point. Look, I'm not of the belief that at some point I'm not going to say something insane and have to come back and eat my own words at some point. I'm sure it's coming soon. I'm just waiting for it. And so I'll be here in my own hostage video. I think we all have to go through it at some point. But this is just a fun one because it was like immediate. Okay. She's like, their lawyers are like, because that is a serious allegation. When you start saying that people are trafficking people across state lines and making allegations that you are engaging in those real egregious, crimes, you run into the defamation per se category and you get into big trouble pretty quickly. So we only cross that line and that threshold in certain circumstances, like when we're talking about Epstein's clients and things like that, because if they get upset about it and they file a lawsuit saying, I never went to that island, you go, that's going to be fun. Well, let's talk about that some more. So you see, but she doesn't want to go down that road with Matt Gaetz, doesn't want to get hit with defamation or any of those. And I don't know what happened behind the scenes, whether Matt Gaetz and his legal team sent them a note or whether their legal team and their attorneys were just jumping out of their chairs and sent them a note or what happened. Jennifer says she's a former federal prosecutor, so she knows how a lot of this works. But we do have a lot of free speech rights in this country. We do have, Matt Gaetz is a public figure. He's going to have a lot of criticism come his way. When you start accusing people of crimes without a lot of evidence to support that, and they're crimes of this character, that really can expose you to some serious liability. Here's what she said one more time, because it's just so enjoyable.
Sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
So she's like sneering, right? She's like sneering. He's constantly, all right, so they're unhappy about it. Now they're trying to parse together why people don't like them so much. Why are they not being watched? We've got some analysis on that, including this exchange from Abby Phillips. And this is a curious one because she's getting pretty close to understanding why people don't believe that her news agency is worth watching, because they don't think they're honest or truthful, or that they have authenticity, because they're not real people. They're just copy pasters. So here is this analysis. She was over at Harvard, and we'll have some other reaction because look at this. 1 in 5 Americans now get their news from social media influencers. And we got to pump those numbers up because we don't want them getting their news from CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, the New York Times, because they just copy and paste each other. We want critically thinking people, which we're creating a revolution and being a part of inspiring a new generation in America. That's what this is all about. We're making America great again. So here she is doing a little bit of an analysis on why their model is no longer working.
I feel like I have to talk about my own demise here, but that's what it is. People are not watching TV anymore, just across the board. They're just not watching TV anymore. They are not really watching much of anything all the way through. People are seeing a little bit here, a little bit there. They're seeing viral clips. They're seeing 30-second videos, 90-second videos. And everything has been chopped and screwed in the media world. And that's how we are increasingly consuming information.
Okay, so this is partially true, right? There are a lot of people who are consuming way more watch time on TikTok than they are on television. And TikTok watch time is through the roof. It's absolutely insane. So that is true. Short form content has done very well. But TikTok has rolled out, I think, even longer form content, right? It's up to 10 minutes, maybe longer now. And the most popular podcasts in the world are long form content. Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Lex. Many of them have hour-long shows. They do very well. So people's attention spans are also long. So it's not that exactly. It's not that it's a short attention span exactly, because CNN could make that model work. If they're short content, which is basically what they do, by the way, like they pretend that they're not competing in the short form content space, but they are. They don't do anything in depth. Their 60-minute shows are filled with about 20 to 30 minutes of commercials. So then it's about 35 to 40 minutes of actual content, which is also disgusting, right? People don't want to sit through that crap anymore. One ad you guys tolerate, right? But if we did one ad every 10 minutes, if we did one ad in our live streams, every 90-minute ad every 10 minutes, you get this. It's ridiculous. What am I watching here? And I wouldn't blame you. I'd be like, this is nuts. Because I wouldn't watch that stuff either, and I don't. And this is what's happening. So then in their, let's say 35 minutes of content in their hour block, then in that, they've got a bunch of 5 to 6 minute segments. Those are short form videos. That's all it is. And they just stack them together. So it's not that either. They really cram a lot in. They're trying to appeal to the low attention span audience who wants to hear about 50 things in an hour rather than one long 3-hour interview, or what we do. Sometimes we'll spend an hour on one document, a full hour just reading through it. So it's not that either. So what is it?
And I think that is only going to increase. And yes, the Trump campaign understood that, but I think they also had a deeper bench of right-leaning tastemakers to go to. It's not just that they understood that, because the Harris campaign, I think, understood that too. Mm-hmm. It's just that the reach of conservative online media, podcasts, YouTube, all of that is massive. Mm-hmm. Facebook, it's massive. And despite talk to the contrary, that there's all this censorship going on, look at the top 10 news podcasts or politics podcasts. Just look at it when you have some time.
Yeah, they're conservative.
Like 80% of them are right-leaning.
Yeah.
Look at the top YouTubers in the media space, in the news space, in the politics space. Most of them are right-leaning. There are huge mega...
Yeah, they're doing very well. And you know why they're on those platforms? It's because you guys threw them out of everywhere else. There was nowhere else to go. That's why we're here. You wouldn't let anybody in your press editorial rooms writing your articles for your readers at the Times or the Washington Post. You threw them out of academia. Conservatives have no place in colleges. You threw them out of your cable news shows, fired even people like Tucker Carlson recently. You've homogenized the entire media domain. So then conservatives fled to AM radio. We had the great Rush Limbaugh, rest in peace, Rush, who had to flee to AM radio to carve out a niche there, and then did it, and then crushed you guys. Radio, because it's about ideas and substance and about having some fun and some community and not taking yourself too seriously and being able to love your country and laugh at the problems that we're going through. And reshaped the entire media. Rush Limbaugh reshaped the entire game. because you threw them out. You threw the ideas out. Then once you guys were able to rid yourselves of Rush Limbaugh way too early, you muted and neutered that entire hour, those 3 hours, and basically apoliticized it, blended it with sports to wash it away and keep some of the advertisers and just bleed it out. And so you neutered that. And then the same thing happened on all the spaces, right? You've had conservative creators thrown out, canceled, castigated for years. And so this is birthed. Megyn Kelly birthed like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Same thing with Tucker. Alex Jones is going through it right now. Many others have. Russell Brand's doing that. So that's because the conservative mindset, in my opinion, is resilient, entrepreneurial, will find a way to make it work. Their side doesn't do that. Their side finds strength in numbers, supports the orthodoxy, making sure that you're in alignment with their ideology. And if you're not, you're out. But if you're in, and they'll support you to the top. But there's a different model. One is centralized, the other is decentralized. And the decentralized model is going to win. So they can continue to do this all they want. But when you criminalize and detest free speech, then you lose your creativity. You lose your fun. You become these boring, bland, miserable people who condescend and look down your nose at everybody like snobs. And I think that they're still working their way through this, as we can tell. So I guess what happened was the Republicans and the conservatives and the Trump campaign went to guys like Joe Rogan. And like suddenly Joe Rogan just jumped in and helped deliver the election. Of course, Joe Rogan's role was very important. I think it humanized Trump and JD and was very important. But Rogan has been building that reputation and that credibility for years. He left California because liberals are nuts. So don't act like it's just this like newfound thing and they were able to go just pull a bunch of people off the bench and put them into the game, which is true too. That did happen. But it's not because Trump had better marketing or better relationships or these people had a better message. It's because these people have been sick. We have been sick. This entire show is birthed out of the COVID insanity and the mandates and the lockdowns that our psycho government forced upon us unnecessarily. And we've been investing in that principle, in those ideals from the beginning. It's been a 4-year investment. It's not like they just called us up. Hey guys, can you talk about the election and support Trump? That's what they did. They called up Oprah. They called up Beyonce. They called up all their pals. And everybody can see it's fake. No one cares what Usher says or Beyonce says or Taylor Swift. Yeah, they can come out and make their endorsement, but it's just election politicking and it's so fake. We can all see it.
Megaphones on the right that they can tap into, and they did smartly at this critical moment when there is this massive decline in engagement in traditional media. And the way that you can amplify your message is by going to other places. And so I think that is true. I'll speak up in defense of CNN and cable news. I think that CNN in particular remains extremely relevant. And it's almost disproportionate in a way to the audience.
It is, actually.
I think the reach of a network like the one that I work at, and I'm saying this partly because I work there, but also because it is true, it has global reach. And
it's embedded.
People are always surprised.
It's just been embedded
this happens
for so
a
long.
lot. People come on the show, and they're surprised by how far what they have said goes.
It is embedded. It's just kind of institutionalized. It's in airports. It's in everybody kind of just, it's like a default setting in many ways. It's like the default app that's installed on your phone. That's CNN.
It's way farther than
but
if
not
they
for
said
long.
It's on another
It's losing
network.
that every year.
It just gets seen a lot more because even though people are not like sitting down in front of their TVs at a prescribed time, it's still a trusted brand that when people see content from CNN, they watch, they listen, they pay attention. And so it still matters. I don't think the Harris campaign, I spent a lot of time talking to them, arguing with them about this.
Why were you arguing with them?
And Eugene, I'm sure you're familiar with this.
Were you trying to help them?
Look, I think that they initially, when she was being criticized for not doing interviews, they said, we're just not going to you, the mainstream media. And I think that was true. But I think there is a difference between just going to alternative media and going to places that have a degree of risk. And that's, I think, what Trump did smartly that benefited him a lot. He was not afraid to go to places that were extremely non-traditional, that were you would never expect to see him.
He did. He
I
did
can't
Theo
even tell you
Von,
what those places are
Aiden
because
Ross.
I don't know what they are. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Theo
it's
Von,
not
Aiden
my
Ross.
demo. It is not my demo, and it's not his by a long shot. But they went there,
Yes,
and
it
they
is.
took a lot of risks. And I think the criticism of the Harris campaign was that, yes, they went to non-traditional media, but they didn't take many risks in doing it. They still were going to places where generally they'd be well received, where generally she would be celebrated, where generally she wouldn't get questions that were unusual, where generally the hosts were non-controversial. And some of these people that Trump were sitting down with are very controversial. And I think that there's a kind of, I think the people who get their news from alternative sources, they give extra points for seeing you in places where they don't expect you. And
Yeah, because we can see you authentically as who you are. So these people aren't that controversial. Theo Von is not a controversial figure, is he? He's a comedian. He says funny things. Might be controversial because he makes jokes about certain groups that can be spicy, but it's a joke. Is that controversy? He was there with Trump, and it was a great conversation because we got to see Trump respond to questions like, cocaine will crack you out like an owl, man, or whatever that was. The most harsh interviews that Trump had were with the mainstream media. They would sit him down and come up with lies and shove lies in his face. Joe Rogan, with Trump for 3 hours, we got into actual substance in conversation. We got to know who the president was. So maybe they should try more of that, but they're trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, here is what MSNBC said.
Get their news from influencers on social media. The number is even higher among younger Americans,
That's
with
right,
almost
Mika.
40% under the age of 30 getting their news from those sources. According to the Pew Research Center, the social media site X remains the most widely accessed platform, followed by Instagram and YouTube.
That comes obviously for political news. And Mike, that's the challenge. You grew up in a newsroom like Gene grew up in a newsroom. That's a lot of challenge. That's a challenge for a lot of mainstream media sources is do they make themselves relevant again to here 20% of adults who actually get influencers on social media.
I don't know
Maybe somebody who makes baskets, and while they're making baskets, they look up and say, vote for candidate X.
I don't know how they make themselves, how we make ourselves relevant again, because we can't compete with 20-second snippets on an iPhone walking up the street.
You don't have to, man. You don't have to. People are watching 3-hour interviews. Joe Rogan has a 3-hour interview all the time. People watch the whole thing. That's not the problem. They're dumbing it down too much. Look, it'd be very easy for all of us. I like long form content. That's our game, right? I could just say, we'd be much more popular. You just have better, you got to create better content, right? You just have to create better content. And what they're doing, right? If our content was better, then we'd have as many millions of views as Joe Rogan's. It's like not that complicated. You just have to work your way to that. And you have to establish credibility. The reason people tune into Joe, the reason people tune into Tucker or Megyn Kelly or anybody at that stage, at that status, is because they've earned it. They've built it over years of credibility. These guys have not. They're talking about the format. Meanwhile, the format. Oh, it's 20 seconds. You guys have a full hour and you can't even make a point. And why would anybody watch anything you say, YouTube Brzezinski's? Because you guys just changed your entire value system on a dime when you went to kiss the ring down at Mar-a-Lago. But I love this. They're going to continue to spin their wheels. They have no idea. You got 6, I would say, moderately smart people in a round table trying to figure it out, and they're just not even close. So the truth is, what is happening is people are experiencing more free speech, and free speech is contagious. Free speech is fun. When you can make jokes and explore issues without having to worry if you're going to step on something, and you can think about and share concepts of freedom and actually solve problems without just spinning your wheels, right? Talking in circles, talking about issues that are irrelevant on the grand scheme of things. Let's solve problems. We make our lives better. It's fun. It's contagious. Speaking truth is exciting. And so they're saying that even now on X, the balance of power has normalized. And as you'll see here, the left has been freaking out about X. They've been running away to this other app called Blue Sky because they can't live in a world where it's a 50-50 split, something that's actually representative of the demographics of the country. They'd rather live in their own echo chambers.
So one of the big reasons he bought Twitter/X is because he wanted to make it his own platform, remake it in his own image. And I think this really gets at it. Look at this. The party ID among those who regularly use X/Twitter for news. Back in 2022, 65% of those who regularly use Twitter/X for news were Democrats. Just 31% were Republicans. Look at where we are today. Just a completely different picture. Now it's basically split between Democrats at 48%, Republicans at 47%. And what I should note, Mr. Berman, is this new overall makeup matches the overall electorate far better. And more than that, John, look at where Mr. Musk's net worth is today versus where it was just 2 months ago. He is the richest man in the world by far. 2 months ago, look at this. His net worth was $252 billion. Look at where we are today, $314 billion. He is by far the richest man ever to be on this planet. So yes, he's not as popular. Yes, Twitter/X perhaps is not as popular, but it's a much different platform, one that more represents Elon Musk's, let's say, political instincts, and he is now a far wealthier man.
All right, I don't know how that segment started, but since he says usage seems to have dropped, I don't know about that. Feels like to me, X is more the centerpiece of the political conversation than it's ever been. They're even talking about X on CNN, right? I mean, it's huge. And it's a 50-50 split, but they're very unhappy about this because they want it to be their territory exclusively. And when Republicans have a voice, Democrats lose, which is why they censor and imprison their opponents in order to secure their victories. But not for long, because Trump's coming back to the White House. All right, and so my friends, it has been a beautiful morning.